Hello, welcome back to the Lingua Loom. Today we're going to start another topic of the series, which is the language of linguistics. So the topic name is branches of linguistics. In previous video we discussed the levels of linguistics. Now we're going to discuss the branches to clarify the difference between the two, as most people mix them. So linguistics is not a single narrow discipline, it is a wide field that extends into psychology, society, the brain, law, culture, and computation. Each extension is a branch, a distinct subdiscipline asking its own questions, using its own methods guided by its own scholar. So we're going to cover this topic, that what are different branches of linguistics. So linguistics is concerned with the nature of language and communication. It deals both with the study of particular languages and with the search for general properties common to all languages. So it's from David Crystal's work, Cambridge Encyclopedia of Language. So let's move forward. The landscape, two kinds of branches are there. So before mapping the individual branches, it is essential to understand the distinction that organizes the entire field. So Lance and Crystal both draw a clear line between branches that are concerned primarily with the internal structure of language itself and the branches that connect linguistics to other disciplines. So why are we using references since many of the previous videos? As it's important, and it is very helpful for students to know that what they are studying and from where the data is being gathered. So they can check it for themselves and discuss it and study in more detail if they want to. So the core and theoretical branches are, these branches study language as a system. From the inside, their primary object is the structure of language itself, its sound, words, sentences, and meaning across languages and across time. They do not require a connection to another academic discipline to define their scope. So it consists of three branches, which is theoretical linguistics, historical linguistics, and typological linguistics. So this deals with internal structure of language without dealing with anything else, just starting from sound to meaning. Whereas interdisciplinary branches, these branches study language at its intersection with another field, which is society, mind, brain, law, culture, or technology. They are defined by their methodology or domain of application, and they regularly cross multiple levels of linguistic analysis in a single study. So the branches of this are Sociolinguistics, Psycholinguistics, Neurolinguistics, Computational Linguistics, Applied Linguistics, Forensic Linguistics, and Anthropological Linguistics. So these are the very classic and clear difference, that branches are divided into two parts, with a theoretical, another one is interdisciplinary. Theoretical deal with just the core of language, which is starting from sound to meaning, whereas interdisciplinary take linguistics out of its domain and connecting it with other fields for broader analysis. Let's move forward. So all branches, overview table. So here are the 10 branches that are addressed here. So these are all branches. Okay, good. And the core and then interdisciplinary. So it's written in front of them, so we'll look just at them. So theoretical linguistics belonging to the type core. So the central question asked by it is, what are the universal formal properties of language? So in this field intersects with philosophy and mathematics. Key scholars Chomsky Wait a second. This is same. Then comes historical linguistics belonging to core type. Central question asked by it is how and why do languages change over time? Intersects with history and archaeology. Major contributors are Grimm and Jones. Then typological linguistics, again type is core. Center question asked is what structural patterns recur across the world's languages. Intersects with anthropology and philosophy. Major scholar is Greenberg. Then comes interdisciplinary. Let's go here to shorten it off. Interdisciplinary. Sociolinguistics type, they are all interdisciplinary. So center question also is how does language vary and change across social groups? So this will intersect with sociology and anthropology. Major contributors are Lebow and Rudgill. Then psycholinguistics. Major question also how do humans acquire and produce language? Intersects with psychology and cognitive science. Major scholars are Steven Pinker and Chomsky. Then comes neurolinguistics. Major question also how is language represented and processed in the brain? Intersects with neuroscience as given in the name and medicine. Key contributors are Broca and Wernicke. Then comes computational linguistics. Major question also is how can computers process, generate, and understand language? Intersects with computer science and AI. Contributors are Harris, Church, Mercer. Then applied linguistics. Central question also is how can linguistic knowledge solve real-world language problems? It intersects with education, translation, and policy. Key scholars are Corder and Halliday. Then comes forensic linguistics. Major question also is how does linguistic evidence function in legal context? So intersects with law and criminology. Major contribution are Coulthard and Johnson. Then anthropological linguistics. Major question also how do languages relate to culture, thought, and society? So intersects with, as the name suggests, anthropology and philosophy. Major contributors are Safer and Worth. So these are all the branches. So let's explore each branch and understand it one by one. First is theoretical linguistics. Core branch asks the question what are the universal formal properties of human language and how can they be modeled? So theoretical linguistics is the branch concerned with building formal models of how language works. A grammar in the broadest sense. It draws on all the 6 levels of analysis. So these are all the levels which are phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics, and attempts to describe them with rigor and generality. Noam Chomsky's aspect of the theory of sentence is the most influential single work in this tradition, proposing that all human language share a deep universal grammatical structure, which is UG, universal grammar that reflects the properties of the human mind itself. But if you want to know about aspects of the theory of syntax, it is discussed in our syntax theory in detail. You can watch video from there. The key contribution is of Chomsky, who argued that the speed and uniformity with which children acquire language, regardless of input quality, can only be explained by an innate species-specific language faculty. This Poverty of the stimulus argument remains one of the most debated ideas in linguistics and cognitive science. So this presents language as a formal system, worker class levels, phonology, morphology, syntax, and semantics. So this was theoretical linguistics. We deal with theory and present different theories that how language works. It deals with the internal structure of language at different levels such as phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. Then comes historical linguistics. So major question asks how and why do languages change over time, and how can we reconstruct languages no longer spoken? So historical linguistics, also called diachronic linguistics, studies language change in sounds, words, grammar, and meaning across time. It uses the comparative method to reconstruct proto-languages, ancestral languages from which modern languages descended. So famous Sir William Jones famously observed in 1786 that Sanskrit, Greek, and Latin bore such systematic resemblance that they must descend from a common ancestor, laying the groundwork for the discovery of Proto-Indo-European languages. So Grimm's Law, 1822. So here it is mentioned because it's famous for this. So Jacob Grimm documented systematic consonant shifts from Proto-Indo-European to Germanic languages, one of the first statements of regular sound change in history. This established that language change is lawful and predictable, not random. It remains a cornerstone of historical linguistics. So this again works in this field. Phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics. So this studies language across time. So this shows that how language is studied in relation to its history, and studies that how languages changes and language families and all those. Then typological. It's the third core branch and asks the question, what structural pattern recur across the world languages, and what does this reveal about language universal? So typological linguistics compare languages across the world to identify recurring structural pattern, not because of common ancestry, that is historical linguistics, but because of universal properties of human cognition and communication. Joseph Greenberg's foundational 1963 paper on word order universals analyzed 30 languages and found that if a language puts the object before the verb, it almost always also places the adjective, often noun. These implicational universals constrain what human languages can look alike. So key insight of all the logically possible word order SOV, SVO, VSO, VOS, OVS, OSV, which is subject, verb, object. The vast majority of the world languages use either SOV, that is, for example, Japanese, Hindi, Turkish, or SVO, which is examples are English, Mandarin, and French. This is not a coincidence. It reflects processing and cognitive constraint on human language. So this works across morphology and syntax as it deals with languages across the world, studies that how language use different patterns, structural patterns. It is not historical linguistics which studies historical connections. It studies how patterns occur in different languages. So next is Sociolinguistics, fourth branch. So question asked is how does language vary across social groups, and how does social context shape linguistic choices? So, sociolinguistics studies the relationship between language and society, how language use varies by region, class, age, gender, ethnicity, and social context. William Labov's Sociolinguistic Patterns is the foundational text of empirical tradition, demonstrating through fieldwork in New York City that phonological variation, how people pronounce their r sound, correlates systematically with social class and style. So Peter Treadgill's Sociolinguistics and Introduction remains a standard introductory reference. So sociolinguistics study language in relation to society. That's how people use language. That's it. The key concept of dialect, register, code switching, language attitudes, diglossia, that is two varieties of language used in different social contexts, and language planning. Sociolinguistics also investigates how minority languages survive or disappear under social pressure. So let's work across these fields. Sociolinguistics is language plus society. So let's move on to psycholinguistics, which is the fifth branch. Asks how do humans acquire, produce, comprehend, and store language in the mind. So sociolinguistics is the study of psychological and cognitive processes involved in the language use. It examines how children acquire language, which is first language acquisition, how adults process sentences in real time, which is sentence processing, and how words are stored and tried from mental lexicons, and what happens when these processes break down through injury or disorder. So Steven Pinker's The Language Instinct is the most widely read account of language as a biological adaptation of the mind. The key question: why do children acquire languages so rapidly and uniformly? The critical period hypothesis. So how do adults resolve syntactic ambiguity in milliseconds? What do speech error, slip of tongue reveal about the structure of the mental grammar? These are the core empirical questions of psycholinguistics. So it works across these fields and study language plus mind. So it deals with individual. It is not about as society deals with collection of people. Psycholinguistics deal with individual. That's the basic difference between psycho and sociolinguistics. That goes to neurolinguistics, which is sixth branch. Ask question: where and how is language represented in the neural architecture of the brain? So neurolinguistics investigate the neurological basis of language, where language is localized in the brain, how brain damages affect language, which is aphasia, and how modern neuroimaging, MRI, and EEG reveals real-time language processing. Two 19th century discoveries remain foundational, which are by Paul Broca identified the left frontal lobe region, now Broca's area, as responsible for speech production, and Carl Wernicke identified the left temporal region, Wernicke's area, as responsible for language comprehension. So this is one of the important points in neurolinguistics. So Broca's aphasia versus Wernicke's aphasia. Damage to Broca's area produces halting, effortful speech but relatively preserved comprehension. Damage to Wernicke's area produces fluent but meaningless speech with severely impaired comprehension. This double dissociation was one of the first pieces of evidence that language is not a single unified ability in the brain. So neurolinguistics deal with brain, whereas the psycholinguistics for language plus mind. In neurolinguistics, it is language plus brain. So it works across these fields. Let's move to computational linguistics. This is branch number 7. Ask question: how can we build computational models that process, analyze, and generate human language? So computational linguistics sits at the intersection of linguistics and computer science. It develops formal models and algorithms for processing natural language, from early rule-based parsers to modern neural language models. It applied on natural language processing, which is NLP, drives technology including machine translation, speech recognition, and text analysis. The Zalling-Harris's foundational 1954 paper on distributional analysis of language was an early computational approach to linguistic structure. The linguist's role, short form from computational linguistics, which is CL, requires deep linguistic knowledge at every level: phonological model for speech recognition, morphological analyzers for parsing, syntactic parsers, semantic role labels, and pragmatic models for dialogue systems. Without linguistics, NLP produces systems that process language statistically without understanding its structure. So it is very important to know every level if you're dealing with computational linguistics, because an error in it can disrupt NLP. So it is language plus computation. It works at these fields. So let's move onward to applied linguistics. So how can linguistic knowledge be applied to solve real-world problems in language education, policy, and communication? So to answer this, applied linguistics uses insight from across the discipline to address practical problems. Second, language teaching and learning, translation and interpreting, language policy, literary development, and workplace communication. XP Codor's paper on the significance of learner errors was a landmark, arguing that errors are not random failures but systematic evidence of the underlying learner grammar. So Amike Halliday's work on language as a social semiotic shaped how applied linguistics understand language in education and institutional context. So why it matters: applied linguistics directly shape how language is taught in school, how translation standards are set, how language tests are designed, and how language rights are protected in multilingual society. It is a branch with the most direct impact on everyday language education worldwide. So it works across these fields, and it is language plus real world problems. So let's move to the next branch: forensic linguistics. How do linguistic evidence function in legal context, from authorship analysis to police interviews, transcripts? So forensic linguistics applies linguistic analysis to legal context. Its uses include identifying the author of an anonymous threatening letter through systematic analysis, analyzing police interview transcripts for coercive questioning, assessing the clarity of legal documents for juries, and giving expert testimony in court on linguistic matters. Coulthard and Johnson's An Introduction to Forensic Linguistics is the standard reference text in the field. So the real-world application is forensic linguistics have been called as expert witness in high-profile criminal cases, analyzing ransom notes, distributed confessions, and threats. The field also scrutinizes the language of Miranda warnings and legal contracts for ambiguities that may affect justice. So it works across these fields and it possesses legal methods, which is language plus law, to study different cases. So let's move on to the final branch, which is anthropological linguistics. How do language relate to culture, thought, and human society? And does the language you speak shape how you think? So, anthropological linguistics, also called as linguistic anthropology, investigates the relationship between language, culture, and thought. Edward Sapir and Benjamin Lever proposed the influential and controversial Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which is linguistic relativity, the idea that the language you speak influences or shapes the way you perceive and think about the world. So, its argument is that your language shapes your thought. So, in its strong form, linguistic determinism, this claim is not supported by current evidence. In its weaker form, that language influences certain aspect of cognition, it continues to generate active research. So, Sapir-Whorf today research on color terms, spatial reasoning, and grammatical gender shows that language does influence certain cognitive tasks, but does not determine thought. The hypothesis survives in its weak form and remains one of the most debated questions at the boundary of linguistics, psychology, and anthropology. So it works across these fields. It is language plus culture. So these are the branches that we have just discussed. Let's move on to the next part. Oh, sorry, I scrolled a lot. So the visual diagram, historical linguistics, the Indo-European family tree. Historical linguistics reconstruct language families, groups of languages descended from the common ancestor. The Indo-European family is most studied. It includes languages spoken by roughly half the world's population. So it is shown by this family tree. So it is shown that how language start from where lead to where. Proto-Indo-European proto is added when we don't know the origin of something. So proto is added that it may be the first ever one. So starting from 4,500 to 2,500 BCE. So it is mapped into Germanic, Romance, Indo-Iranian, Hellenic, Slavic languages. So in Germanic, it's overwritten, but still it's fine. As English, Germanic groups into English, German, and Dutch languages, in which English then comes in the field of Old English. It is missed from here. Middle English and then Modern English, whereas Romance from Latin languages originate from Latin. These are 3 in number. Wait a second. Spanish, French, and Italian. So Indo-Iranian, which includes Sanskrit. This branched into Hindi, Persian, and Bengali, whereas Hellenic, it is branched into ancient Greek and modern Greek. Then last one, Slavic, which is Russian, Polish, and Czech. So this is most studied construction. Other language family tree is also presented on our website. You can check it from there. So let's move forward. Which branch works at which level? So it is important to know, we have just discussed, as we shown previously, that the different branches deal with different levels. So it is made to show you that which branch works at which level for better understanding. So the circle indicates that which level which branch performs well. So the whole brown one like this is primary focus, then this one with outer dark brown and inner one is beige. This is occasional hue, and the one that is light in color, very much light in color, that is not typically applied. That branch does not deal with that level. So theoretical linguistics sometimes deal with phonetics and mostly deal with phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and also sometimes with pragmatics. Whereas historical linguistics, it does not deal with phonetics, as we don't have that much knowledge of phonetics. It can't deal with phonology, as area knowledge is there, so they drive their theories and their hypotheses through phonology. Whereas it deals with morphology, syntax, semantics, not deal with pragmatics, as most of the time contextual meaning is lost, so hard to approach. Then typological linguistics does not deal with phonetics, it deals with phonology. Sometimes, mostly it deals with morphology and syntax, and sometimes with semantics and not with pragmatics. Then comes sociolinguistics, now dealing with phonetics, mostly with phonology, morphology, and syntax, sometimes with semantics, and pragmatics is the most good. Then comes psycholinguistics, sometimes with phonetics, mostly with phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and sometimes with pragmatics. Then comes neurolinguistics, it deals with phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, and semantics, sometimes with pragmatics. Computational linguistics deal with all three because it is important in creating NLPs and other computational models. Then applied linguistics sometimes deal with phonetics and deal with all other levels equally. Then forensic linguistics sometimes deal with phonetics and it deal with phonetics, but sometimes with phonology and morphology, and deal with syntax, semantics, and pragmatics mostly. Then anthropological linguistics, now dealing with phonetics, no or rare dealing with phonetics, deals with phonology sometimes, and mostly with morphology, occasionally with syntax, and mostly with semantics and pragmatics. So this is what shows here. Let me zoom in so you can clearly see it like this. Still not branching really well. So here it is. This shows the difference. Now let's move forward. So when did the branches emerge? So the branches of linguistics did not appear at once. They emerged as separate scholarly traditions over 2 centuries. As new questions, new tools, and new disciplinary neighbors open new possibilities for the study of language. So starting from 1786, late 18th century, historical and comparative linguistics by Sir William Jones 1786 address to the Asiatic Society of Bengal observed systematic resemblance between Sanskrit, Greek, Latin, Gothic, Celtic, and Persian, suggesting common ancestry. So this triggers the comparative philology movement of the 19th century, producing the first scientific branch of modern linguistics, which is historical linguistics and typological linguistics. Then comes neurolinguistics in 1861, 19th century. The first brain language discoveries. So Paul Broca's 1861 identification of the left frontal speech area, followed by Carl Wernicke's 1874 identification of the comprehension area, founded the study of language in the brain. These discoveries established that language is localized, lateralized, which is predominantly left hemisphere, the position of it in brain, and dissociable into components. Founding principles of neurolinguistics. The brain diagram is presented on our website. If you want to see it, you can clearly see it from there to see the position of Broca and Wernicke's area. So this positioned the base for neurolinguistics, starting from 1786, then moving to 1861, then let's move forward to theoretical and structural linguistics, which is Saussure's revolution in 1916, which is early 20th century. So Saussure's course, The Linguistic General, 1916, reoriented linguistics from its historical focus to the synchronic study of languages system. This founded modern theoretical linguistics as a formal discipline, the branch concerned with language structure in the abstract and independent of historical chain. So here in 1916, theoretical linguistics was emerged as a great branch. Then comes sociolinguistics, psycholinguistics, and computational linguistics emerged in 1950s, which is mid-20th century. The 1950s and 1960s saw rapid expansion of the field. Chomsky's generative grammar in 1957 and 1965 defined theoretical linguistics and sparked psycholinguistics. So William Labov's urban dialectology fieldwork in the 1960s formally established sociolinguistics. Harris' 1954 distributional analysis and early machine translation projects foundational computational linguistics. All three subfields solidified in this period. So this set the base for sociolinguistics, psycholinguistics, and computational linguistics. Then comes applied linguistics and forensic linguistics. In 1967, which is late 20th century, the applied linguistics were formalized as a distinct field through Kodo's 1967 paper on learner errors and the founding of AILA, which is Association International de Linguistique Appliquée, in 1964. So forensic linguistics emerged later in the 1980s and 90s as linguists began testifying in courts and the first academic journal and handbooks appeared. Both branches represent the practical outward turn of the 21st century linguistics. So this set the base for applied linguistics, forensic linguistics, and anthropological linguistics. So this shows that branches emerged starting from historical linguistics in 1786, moving to neurolinguistics 1861, then theoretical and structural linguistics to 1960s, and sociolinguistics Psycho and Computational Linguistics in 1950s, and Applied Forensic and Anthropological Linguistics in 1967 to onward. So this is from where data is being taken. You can take it from there. So that's it for today. I hope you understand it, as it is very important to know the clear distinction between levels and branches and how they are connected, as this is it, and how branches are divided into two parts. And how data is started from historical linguistics, starting from Proto-Indo-European to what we have today, which is modern English. This can't be analyzed without analyzing all the levels, and different branches play their role. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Please do like, subscribe, and share, and do comment. That is very important for the algorithm. And thanks for watching. That's it for today. Have a good day.